Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We will go ahead and start. I did hear from Commissioner Lambert. She will not be here this morning, so I don't know about Commissioner Peduzzi, but we do have a quorum, so let's get started. Madam City Attorney, you want to take this over?
I do, Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Kimberly Rothenberg on behalf of the City Attorney's Office presenting to you today information about the City of West Palm Beach Wrecker Operator System. Currently, what that entails is, currently we, the City of West Palm Beach, engage wrecker operators to respond to a accident scene, an abandoned or a disabled vehicle by virtue of franchise agreements and franchise fees that we collect and impose upon those who we contract with to do that or to provide that service. Recently, however, the Florida legislature decided that, like it does in other areas, that it was going to tell local governments how it should work with towing companies, and in their most recent adoption told cities and local governments that they are prohibited from charging fees to towing companies. So our current franchise agreements that impose fees on those companies are currently going to expire, and we, the city, need to decide how are we going to move forward with providing those towing services in those type of circumstances. The legislation goes on to say that local governments are allowed to charge an administrative fee through the towing company that we contract with to offset the cost of providing the services. The statute goes on to say that counties are entitled to establish a maximum rate for the towing fees that the towing companies can charge for providing those services. It does say that if a local government imposes a fee, then the county's regulations are not applicable in that jurisdiction. We're not proposing to establish our own towing fee, but rather to use the county's fees that are established. More of the same, in addition to regulating how cities and local governments do operations, the new legislation also regulates how the wrecking companies will provide services and what are those requirements. We'll get into all of that when we actually get into the ordinance that will come before you for consideration.
Madam City Attorney, before you go further, and maybe it's part of your presentation, can you talk about what the current state of affairs are now, so we could have a basis of...
Right now, we're still...
So
yes.
What are we doing now?
Right now, we are still operating under the franchise agreements with two towing companies. It's Coffs Towing and Sheehan Towing provide services to the city. Those agreements are going to expire. The franchise fee agreement does set forth what the current fees are that they can charge for providing those services and what's required of the towing companies, and that's how it's currently operating.
And are we collecting an administrative fee under the franchise agreement now, or all that money?
Just a flat franchise fee, right, Sam?
We charge each towing company a franchise fee of
$15,000 per year.
Okay, so we can no longer do that under the new statute.
Correct.
And we can only collect some kind of administrative fee.
Right, and that's up to 25% of the maximum fee that's charged for the tow.
All right, and that maximum fee charged for the tow is going to be established by the county now.
It has been established by the county.
Has been established. We're going to piggyback on that.
Correct.
And then we'll take a portion of that as a separate administrative fee.
Right, and that's what we're here to talk about. What amount would the city want to charge on top of the fees that are charged by the towing company for providing those tow services?
But it's probably clearly going to be less, as we add it up, clearly less than the $15,000 franchise fee that we
I think that we would really need to know the number of tows that those service providers provide to be able to give you that answer. The police department is not here currently. I know that I see finance here, and I'm not sure if those numbers were run. Linda, do you have those numbers?
You got to talk to the mic, please.
Currently, the $15,000 per...
State your name for the record.
I'm sorry, Linda McDermott, City's Grants and Special Projects Administrator. So currently, $15,000 each from the two tow companies. With all the tows that the police department does, we would hope to at least gather back that 30,000 of revenue that we're not collecting now. So as soon as police department gets here, I can confirm that with them, but I will follow up with you if they are not able to.
All right, but we'll have that information before we consider the actual ordinance, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, go on with your, I just want to get a level set so we'll know what we're looking at here.
No problem, Mayor. So what you will see come before you is the ordinance number 499922, which in essence establishes and creates the Wrecker program. It allows the city to contract with authorized Wrecker operators to remove those wrecked, disabled, or abandoned vehicles. It provides that all of the procurements for those Wrecker services will also be competitively selected, and establishes criteria that's required to competitively select those persons and entities to provide services in the future. Again, what we told you was that the administrative fee, and one of the reasons that we're here today is to establish what would be a fee that we would want to impose, can't exceed 25% of the maximum towing rate. The maximum towing rates established by the county, they come up on another slide, but they are in 4 classes. It's Class A, which is a regular straight tow, $167. Class B is $248. A Class C tow is $370, and a Class D tow is $530, so it'd be 25% of those fees. Linda McDermott, through the finance office, determined or calculated what it costs on average for the city to respond to a call for a vehicle, looking at 3 employee salaries. She looked at a police officer, community service aide, and the administrative costs for the records themselves, broke those costs down as to the amount of time each individual would spend at the scene, and came up with an average cost for each tow response of $131.35.
That's whether it's Class A, B, C, or D?
No, that's our actual cost, because what we can't do is when we calculate the 25%, another parameter is it's not a straight 25%. It can only cover the cost to us. So in no instance can it exceed $131.35. So that's the purpose for that number.
All right, so even though a Class D tow, whatever that is, may be over $500, our administrative fee, which is 25% of that, under no circumstances
Can
can that
exceed
administrative
130.
fee exceed the 131.
Correct. And I don't think that it would, based on the number here, Class D at 530, without doing the math real quick. And I'm a lawyer, so I'm not going to do the math for you.
All right.
So again, our question, the city doesn't have to impose a fee, it can. And we heard from finance, and maybe Linda wants to talk more about the reason of replacement of the revenue and the cost for providing those services without an additional fee. If imposed, what percentage of the maximum towing rate shall be imposed? We don't have to do 25%. You could do 20%, 15%, 10%, and so on. Additionally, Sam would like to know, in drafting the regulations, whether or not the towing assignment should be apportioned by rotation, zoning assignment, or a combination of those methods. And that information would go into the solicitation, where when we put out the scope of services that we're looking for. It's my understanding, and again, I will confirm with police and provide this information to you, that they currently do a rotation system. I believe the recommendation would be that that system works and to continue with that system, but I will have to confirm that with the police department.
Kimberly, do you know why this became an issue in Tallahassee, other than, I guess, the towing companies felt they were being overcharged at the state level?
I personally don't, but Rebecca may have some information about the start. Would you like to?
You need to introduce yourself and go to a mic, please.
And I can also look at the legislative history and see if there's some information there, but go ahead, Rebecca.
No problem. Rebecca De La Rosa, Chief of Staff and Economic Development Director for the City of West Palm Beach. So about 5 years ago, there was a legislator that filled a seat in Orlando who owned a towing company. Since then, the legislature has been approached with multiple pieces of legislation that address towing. So for the last 4 years, I fought the towing bill that Faye may have heard in years past at the county level. This is an addition to some of those requests at the legislative level. So there's multiple companies that are interested and continue to be, and now that former legislator is still continuing to pursue those changes. So unless municipalities and counties come together to try and fight legislation like this, which I had done in the past, grouped together with Broward and Miami-Dade, these will continue to come at us.
Okay. Thank you for that insight.
I did want to note one additional thing so that I make sure that the administrative fee that's allowed to be charged is not being charged to the towing company. The towing company is allowed to collect that fee, but it has to be paid by the person who is getting the tow. So in addition to their tow charge, they'll pay the city's administrative charge for having to get the service for them instead of them getting it on their own behalf.
So we'll get the complaints at City Hall that we don't need to be charging this. Commissioner Ward and then Commissioner Peduzzi.
So just so I can be clear, so we figured out that we get a 131 around a hit each time that we respond to this, but we can't really say a number, we have to do percentage. If we're gonna put an ordinance through, we have to list a percentage.
Yes, you will want to
We can't
include
just
the,
say our actual cost not to exceed 25%.
that would probably be sufficient. I mean, you can say, you would probably want to say X number, so long as that number doesn't exceed the 25, or 25%,
number.
whichever is less.
Okay,
So that there has to be a clear number so everyone knows what the fee is going to be. It can't be, we have to make it worded so that we know what the fee is. I think if we use the language, whichever is less, that does establish the specific amount.
Commissioner Peduzzi.
Thank you, Mayor. So for purposes of the percentage, or let me know if it comes into play at all, the fact that a lot of vehicles, once they get towed from a scene, get stored at a lot. Does that come into play here, the storage of the vehicle, and is a percentage that can be paid?
The tow is by itself. Those fees are additional fees that would be incurred. The storage fees are separate. You'll see in front of you, the county has, and it's very small, and that's why I
So we're
printed
supposed
it.
to read this?
Yeah, I could see it with my glasses on, Mayor, so I'm
Okay.
thinking maybe, but the storage fee is separate and apart from the fee that's permissible for the tow itself.
Okay.
But the city doesn't get any of the storage fee.
No, it's all to the wrecker.
Okay. Did you have a
Just one
follow-up there?
follow-up. And you said that the record company is the one that bills the person whose vehicle was towed, and then they would pay us.
After they receive their money,
So if they don't receive the money, we're not receiving the money either.
correct.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ward.
but we're still limited to actual cost, that's part of the statute. We can't just
Absolutely.
make it, we can't just say 25, so.
And that's true of all of our regulatory fees. They have to be concurrent or equal to the amount of the cost of the program. Otherwise, they're an unlawful tax.
But then what happens in years from now when you're gonna have to continue to change this ordinance then with, if our fees get higher, if salary gets higher, then that 131 changes because you're paying people more.
And that's why we would recommend using this specific percentage so that when those numbers change, your percentage changes with the numbers.
Oh, you'll come back to us with proposed language and we can hash it.
Yes, as soon as we know this percent that we're comfortable with, if we're comfortable with looking at 25%, we can certainly draft it that way and have further conversations and give you actual numbers of what those 25% are for each category. Linda would like to speak if you want to hear.
President Fox.
I'm curious how we came up with the number of 15,000 in the first place that we were charging. Was that ever based on an actual number that we thought was going to cover our administrative fees?
It's a franchise fee, and franchise fees, at the time that the franchise fee was established, it was more than likely, and I'd have to look, I'm looking at Sam because he may know, there was a code that allowed the imposition of the franchise fee, and the franchise fee was established there. That's generally
Now, was
how
that a
it works.
competitive, that was a competitive process, right? So,
Franchise aren't competitive process.
Oh,
The
okay.
franchise are, well, they do send out notices of the opportunity, so there is a competitive component to it, but the franchise fee itself
fee itself was fixed.
is fixed.
Ms. McDermott, did you want to say something else?
Yes, I did the calculations for you while I was sitting there. Linda McDermott again. Okay, so with the standard tow, which is the 167, 25% of that is $42. So that gives you an idea. A majority of the tows, I believe, are in the 248 range, which is the next class, which is the B class. $62 is 25% of that. So I think what we're looking at here is if you come up pretty much the way we do, like with our alarm billing and such, we do the reasonableness. We only want to get back what it cost us to provide services so the taxpayers are not burdened anymore with these tows. So by breaking it down this way, if you take the mid-range of your tows, you're probably looking at $50 to $60, which would be reasonable for the majority of your tows. Your high-end tow of $530, of course, are your big trucks. Now, take in mind, I worked in dispatch for police for many years, and I'm familiar with this, so that's where I'm getting a lot of my numbers from. Currently, when I worked with the police department a couple of years ago to come up with an estimate when this unfunded mandate came through, we took what we were getting now of the 30,000, which was just 2 tow companies, and we figured that we could probably get 50 to 60,000 based on the number of tows. That was 2 years ago. So that just kind of gives you an idea, if you do it by your basic number of tows, that we believe that we are going to cover and get more revenue than what we were getting before. But by giving you this information that you can make a decision on, it's a reasonable amount that I believe that we're trying to come up with, right, Kimberly? So that way the taxpayers are not paying for every accident or tow that's out there, and we just want to recoup our cost of doing services.
Let me make sure I understand this. So if our actual cost is $131, but for Class A and Class B, and pretty much up to Class D, we can only recover a maximum of 25%. And if that's like $50 and $60, aren't we losing money on every tow?
Well, technically not, Mayor, because the taxpayers of the city of West Palm Beach already pay for your officers and your community response and your dispatch and what have you. But this is just additional services, just like our alarms. When I did the cost profile many years ago for the alarms, we just need to get back something that we may not have gotten this amount back. It's just an agreement, so it's a portion.
I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a lawyer too, so I'm not good
Yeah.
in math. When you tell me $60 and our charge is $131, $60 is less than $131, whether or not we're paying, they're already getting paid. But okay, it is what it is. It's not like we have a lot of flexibility here. President Fox.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, you just mentioned that when you did the math, you thought we would be coming out with $50,000 a year. Is that based on this $50 on each tow, or?
That was a couple of years ago when I did an analysis with the previous captain back there, just with the documents that we had, with the number of just your average tows. Now, I don't know if Lieutenant might have some numbers, but I can certainly do an analysis when I get the numbers.
But so in
and give you
theory, 50,000 is more than we're getting now for only
Yes,
getting 30,000?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you.
And to help you in making your analysis, we will look and see when we first created the franchise fee, was years ago. So the fee may not be in keeping with the current cost, but rather the cost that were associated with the program at the time.
All right, well, when this comes back to us for formal action, I'd like to see a breakdown I like that data. how many tolls have been done, how many we're projecting, and whatever classification is here, what the administrative fee would be, and I don't know if you have any way to project number of Class A versus Class B versus Class C, best guess estimate, again, so that we as members of the dais can be armed with as much data as we possibly can get that's pretty close to accurate. Is that possible?
Absolutely. We'll take the historic data and information, and we'll also pull some of the original legislative history and all of those questions that came up today and have answers for you specifically.
All right, Commissioner Ward?
Which, when the funds are collected, which pot does it go into? Which budget does it go into? General? Or?
General fund.
Okay.
So what did you need from us today? What kind of guidance did you need from us today?
The guidance was really, was there a percentage, number one, did you want to impose a fee to recoup the costs of providing the service? And if so, did you want us to draft at the 25% and then discuss whether or not that's at the time that the ordinance comes forward, if you want to keep it that way or change it? Additionally, question C, and I think this goes to the police department because I answered for them, should the towing assignments be apportioned by rotation, zone assignments, or a combination of those methods? And I think you need direction from the police department as to what works best for them to answer that question.
All right, you need to introduce yourself and talk into the mic. So there's a mic right over there.
So the question that we talked about a little bit earlier was, we, the city of West Palm Beach, are getting ready to create a wrecker towing ordinance. Currently, we operate our towing under the franchise agreements and the contracts that were entered into with the two towing companies that we work with currently. We don't know from a drafting perspective whether or not the towing assignments that we do in the future should be assigned to the various wrecking companies by rotation. You know, you rotate who you use, or if there are certain zones that you want to create in order to have certain tow companies respond to certain areas, or whether or not that a combination of those methods would be recommended from the police perspective for using the tow companies.
Gotcha. My name is Lieutenant Kevin Farrell, in charge of the traffic division. Sorry for my tardiness. I thought it was 10:30 as I was told to be here, so I apologize. I mean, we've been doing the same thing for the whole time I've been here, 20 years, which is a rotation. I haven't seen a problem with it. I don't know anything else as far as a different way to do it. I'm not a big proponent of just sticking with it just because we've always done it for this long, but it's worked so far, you know, as far as we can tell. We don't see a lot of hiccups in it. No complaints from the guys below me about times, delays. The only problem would be like the cost as far as deciding on scene whether it's an emergency to get the vehicles off the road quick enough. That would kind of fall on us, where we don't give them the option to call their own towing company or whatever. We need to move it quickly. So it's a case-by-case basis on how we determine, you know, who's getting charged every time. Doesn't
And
work
I have a quick question to help the commission ultimately. When you arrive on scene, is it the responsibility of the officer to remain on scene until the tow company arrives?
At least one officer, yes.
Okay.
Generally the same officer the whole time.
Okay, so we got the answer to C. Unless commissioners, you feel differently, I would say keep it at rotation. That seems to have been working. Our police department is comfortable with that. So C is rotation. Going back up, A, shall the city impose an administrative fee? I would say yes, but I'll leave it to my fellow members of the dais to see if there's any disagreement with that. All right, so C, yes.
I just wanted to ask one question about that. You mentioned that you basically make the decision on the scene whether or not someone can call their own towing company or not. So basically, if they were going to call their own company or AAA or something, then maybe they would already have they might already be paying for that themselves, like yearly or something like that.
Generally, yeah, either the insurance would pay or they would have some type of service come. So if we can get them out in 20 minutes, we give them 15 to 20 minutes. If you can call your own company, get them here, and take it to where you'd like within 20 minutes, they can use their own company. Then if not, we step in because it's in the middle of the road. It's a safety issue.
All right, so we will impose an administrative fee. And then B, what percentage of the maximum towing rate should be imposed? I would say 25%, unless there's any disagreement with that. Okay? Does that give you the guidance you need? Then you'll come back to
Absolutely.
us with the statute, with the data that ordinance, I'm sorry, with the
Yes,
ordinance.
we will.
Data, et cetera. Okay,
Thank you so much for your time.
thank you very much. I don't have anything under mayor's matters. Commissioners, you have anything for the good of the order? Commissioner Ward,
When are we rescheduling the onboarding for?
you guys tell me. Every time we try to schedule it, somebody is backing out. So, Ms. Johnson, you want to speak to that?
Right now, we don't have a set date. You know, I have gotten the commissioner's schedules from Nerlon and trying to set it for when we have, you know, all commissioners here. So I will certainly keep you all posted. It probably will be in September, given the August schedules, because I know some of you are going to be on vacation and at various other types of activities outside of the city. So probably September.
Any other questions, issues for the good of the order? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.